so much. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm so excited to talk to you about this movie because I watched it in January at the Sundance Film Festival, and it is still one of my top favorite films that I've seen from this year. It's just so incredibly sweet.
Thank you so much. Thank
Of course. Of course, like anytime I get a chance to speak with a filmmaker, I know it's an easy question, but I just have to know how something like this came to mind for you. Was this a personal tale that you got to tell or something that was just floating around in your mind?
Yeah, it's really terrible that I've not thought of like a better story, but I can never answer it better than saying that I don't really remember because it was so long ago. Like, there's lots of the personal aspects so that I like wanted to do like a joyful kind of working class story because that's like the world I remember growing up. But
Mhm.
beyond that, there's it's not like anything I've experienced in terms of Georgie's kind of story or anything like that. There's for sure characters I recognize and people I love of elements of those in there, but otherwise, yeah, who knows? Yeah, yeah.
Can you relate to Georgie as a character? Because I try to think back to how I was as a 12-year-old. I believe that's how Georgie is in the film. I would not be as resourceful as this little girl. I mean, she is scamming the Child Protective Services, whichever the name is, over in the UK. She is scamming every single adult that she knows. She can take care of herself without a problem, and I think I would just fail at that within 5 minutes of trying.
Yeah, fair enough. She is very good at it. Lola herself is also an incredible storyteller and can convince you to do absolutely anything. It's really her superpower. So I think I'm the same as you. I kind of wish that I've probably wrote characteristics that I wish I had. I wish I was that good with my words and that charming enough to convince people of anything, but I know for sure that I'm not, unfortunately. Yeah, yeah.
You said that there are some elements that you put in that you recognize that you are very familiar of, whether it's from your own upbringing or just the area that you grew up in and live in. What are some of those things that are very personal in this film to you and that you know very well?
Just the feeling more than anything, more than any particular details. It's more like the sense of joy and that like childhood perspective of like not knowing that you have less than other people,
Mhm.
and just feeling like the world you're in is the best world possible, and like the working class communities like coming together and supporting one another and that kind of sense of safety for the kids on the estate, I think is something I recognize for sure. Yeah.
And I do love the friendship that she forges with her friend, where I feel like they both recognize that there's something wrong here, that they really shouldn't be left up to their own devices. I know her friend does live with his family. Georgie is in a much different situation, but they just seem to be supporting each other in their crazy turmoils, which includes what it was, it's stealing bikes and taking money from people. Was there anything that, I guess, as you were writing this film, was there anything that you felt was a little too much to have a child do? Or was everything very much rooted in that reality that either you are familiar with or other people are familiar with? Like, did you ever think, "Well, maybe this is not exactly the right way and right path for a child to go on?"
um no, not really. I think I always saw the script as like Georgie's script. So
Mhm.
it's almost like I've gone to Georgie a year after something happened and I've said to her what happened last summer. And I think naturally kids embellish and their storytelling is full of magic. Do you know what I mean? Because she's obviously like not building a real tower up to the sky. So in that same way, I think the whole film is potentially like semi fantasy.
Mhm.
Like when Jason shouts at her, I'm always like, did that actually happen, or is that Georgie's retelling of that? Do you know what I mean? It's very
Mhm.
much like rooted in her perspective beyond the stylish elements. And then no, like I kind of think like yeah, like working class kids in particular are super resilient, and some of them unfortunately have to shoulder a lot more than other kids might have to, and have to kind of grapple with supporting their family, or at the very least kind of like semi raising themselves at times. So to me, I don't, yeah, I never look at things like the bike stealing or anything like that in a negative way. i
Mhm.
i think it's for, the world that has failed these kids. It's not the kids that are failing the world,
Of
Yeah.
course, yes. I'm an only child, so I very much related to the independence that you gain, especially very early on. And I was not raised in the UK, but very much so had to, take myself to school by myself from I think ever since I was 9 years old or so, I was making sure that I was feeding myself and dressing myself and getting to the school bus on time, my parents having to work and everything. So there are definitely those moments that are very relatable to myself with this story. Um, a little bit about those fantasy elements. That was something that I thought was so cool about this film. Obviously, you have the father and daughter reuniting at one point, kind of like the family dramedy aspect of the film. I love those mockumentary moments where you have her classmates and friends talking about her saying, I don't know if she's really all well in the head. And then you have some of those kind of like comic book moments, I feel like the spiders giving interviews themselves or talking throughout the film. Was that always part of the initial outline for this story, or was that something that kind of came as you started thinking about the film, whether it was in the writing process or just overall thinking about the story?
Yeah, they're like having the kind of more stylish or obscure moments was kind of always in there, or from quite early draft it was. But then the execution of them changed. Like when my DP Molly came on board, she had like much better ideas than I had that we then changed. And when my production designer Eleanor came on board, so it's kind of like a monster of all those opinions that made it much better. But we always had kind of the weird moments. We always wanted to kind of take those risks, even if some of them
Mhm.
weren't perfect. We just preferred that we were, yeah, like doing that and breaking some of the forms for sure.
Mhm. Rather than just playing it safe and, not necessarily getting your full voice through that story.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
And it seems like it was a very collaborative effort on set from so many different departments. Is that something that was new to you in terms of the filmmaking process, or is that how you always strive to make, whether it's your own films or any of the films that you are involved in?
Yeah, it's for sure my preference on every project is like to, I think it's part of like kind of the joy of this job is that you get to be like surrounded by friends, and friends that are like incredible at their job. So why would you go in with a really strong-willed opinion if these incredible specialists are gonna, help you bring that to life, so
Mhm.
it's how I hope every project it's not always the way. This one was very particular. Molly's one of my best friends, and
Mhm.
Eleanor, my production designer, I've known since I was like 12 or 13. We went to school together, so a very long time. And Theo, the producer, is one of my closest friends. So yeah, I think that's like quite a rare space that we created, and I
Mhm.
know I won't be lucky enough to have it on every project, but
Yes.
hopefully here and there I'll get some of them like that for sure. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I did want to chat a little bit about Lola and Harris. I I think this is Lola's first film appearance or her debut. Is that right? I mean,
Yeah,
she looks like a natural. I mean, she's a born star. I guess, how did you find Lola through this, either through the casting process, or was it, some other way that you happened to find her? And how did you know that she was the one to play Georgie?
oh yeah. Our casting director Shaheen is incredible at everything, but in particular at like street cast young people and
Hmm.
finding these kinds of characters. And it was like quite a long search. We started it before COVID begun, so a year before we got to shoot, we were doing it we were meant to shoot much earlier than we did. So we were meeting young people in schools before COVID
Oh,
and kind of
okay.
going into classrooms and stuff. And then once COVID came around, it was a much more like tape world. And then you'd eventually get into auditions. But Lola sent in this incredible tape talking about how much she loved like discount stores and how much she loved like going to Home Bargains, which is like our popular discount store. And she just rambled away about it for ages. And instantly, I think I said to Theo, the Home Bargains girl is the best, and she's going to be Georgie. And then when we met her, she was super shy and she wouldn't actually say anything. She would just say, I think she just kept saying not sure, and that's what she just kept repeating for every question.
Mm-hmm.
But we started, that tape was so magic, and we kind of spoke to her mum about it, and she was very, you know, transparent about like, you just need to be consistent and she just needs to feel comfortable. It was like an awkward audition space, which is
Sure.
scary for adults, let alone for kids, you know. So we started going around to Lola's house like once, twice a week for cups of teas and making fools of ourselves by doing improv and that kind of to warm up. And then when it came to the shoot, she just switched it on and she was like the ultimate professional and just incredible. Yeah.
That's adorable. I mean, she really is just wonderful. And if you didn't know that it was her first film, you would think that she's been doing this since she was in diapers or something like that. But I mean, she just fully embodied it. And it seems like her and Harris Dickinson just had, I hope, as fun off screen as they did on screen too. Was he, did you write this with him maybe in mind, or after some time did you just feel like he would be the best person to embody this father figure who, was not around for a good portion of her life?
Yeah. I don't really tend to write with people in mind, just in case they say no, and then the heartbreak would just be devastating. But yeah, we always wanted to cast Georgie first because we felt like the dad should be anchored around the daughter, you know,
Mhm.
and that we shouldn't do that thing of casting the role that could be a name and then dictating what, because those searches for young people, for young girls in particular, are so tough. To find like an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old that can carry the entire film is tough. So we didn't want to kind of do it the wrong way around, you know.
Mhm.
So we started kind of meeting with Lola, and then we started thinking about the Jason role. And I'd worked with Harris on a short film before, so I just knew he was like an incredible, like such a selfless human. Obviously, his performances are incredible as well. Like he's a great actor, but he's also just like so kind and so grounded and so willing to offer other performers like so much space and so much of himself to help them, which I think we wouldn't have found with many other people for sure. Yeah.
And he's so different in every role that I see him in too, so he's a chameleon.
Yes, yeah, he's brilliant.
Well, Charlotte, I do have to end our time here today, but I just want to thank you so much for chatting about this really lovely film. Congratulations on the success so far, and I know that we're going to get a lot of really fun things from you again in the future. So just thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you for taking the time to chat to me as well.